Welcome to episode 126 of Rebirth Revolution. My name is Melissa Olson. This has been another rough week. The senseless invasion of Ukraine continues. The images coming out of there are horrific. The old quote, "Anyone who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities," comes to mind. There is no logical, moral, or legal grounds for this invasion, but when you control the flow of information, you control what your people are willing to do and what they are willing to disregard. That is why truth matters so much. Every wannabe dictator begins their journey into the darkness by controlling the information that others may see and hear. Once their followers have demonstrated that they will accept anything the leader says as fact, the descent can begin. In the previous administration, they came right out of the gates with a lie that was easily disputable with visual evidence. They said their inauguration was the biggest ever. We could see with our own eyes that it was not. I think at the time some of us just thought that it was a pathetic display of insecurity, but it was just the beginning of a process. Fact checkers have documented that the previous president told over 30,000 lies during his 4 years in the White House, and we now see the results. His followers have been conditioned to abandon all logic, thought, and investigation. They no longer believe their own eyes and ears. They believe whatever he says, all evidence to the contrary. It is their loyalty oath to him. They will abandon truth in his honor. The concept of an alternate reality has gotten to the point that there are citizens who are living in some angry la-la land where nothing they think or say makes any logical sense. But they are internally fired up about these things nonetheless, which is an addictive feeling. It's a frightening thing to see how easy it is to bend reality to fit the needs of one small, evil man. And the worst part is that the lies are not simply to cover up one man's actions. The lies are an act meant to separate the followers from objective reality, so that they may be led to do whatever their leader wishes. Anyone who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. It is sad to know that the souls of each and every follower will, through this choice, accumulate karma that will have to be reconciled, even if they were tricked into following that which a reasonable person would know was wrong. Each soul is ultimately responsible for the hatred and destruction that they put into the world. There will be a balancing of those actions. There is no clause that gets you out of spiritual repercussions because you were bamboozled by a charlatan who is working at the lowest levels of spiritual awareness. He will have his own karma, and they too will have theirs. More than ever, you need to think for yourself. You need to separate logical thought from emotional knee-jerk reactions. You need to align your choices with reason combined with your own intuition. Choices that resonate with your intuition are usually your best choices. When you are asked to hate other people, you must ask yourself, why? The latest attacks on everyone who is not a straight white male should make you ask, why? Why would anyone else's life be an affront to me and my spiritual journey? Why are we being asked to think that only straight white men are the people to be valued in our culture? Is it that the existing systems are designed by and for them, and everyone else who wants to participate in our culture threatens their stronghold? All systems that are in place, including a government and its military, are like a pyramid. There are a few people at the top who need the much greater number of people in the middle and at the bottom to do their bidding. They never do it themselves. You won't see Putin endanger his own life. He will just convince others that they need to murder in his name, and they should be fine with dying for him. Don't be used by someone else's agenda. Your soul is at stake. What we are seeing in the rebirth is that the pyramid is starting to flip. The few that hold the power over everyone else are starting to lose the willing participation of those in the middle and at the bottom. Their missions are being questioned. Their motives are being questioned. Their agendas are being questioned. What is your own personal agenda? Have you given that much thought? And how will you hold fast to that? In following the events of the day, I marvel at the recognition that I am somehow inside the heads of, at least 500 people or so. That can't be healthy. When I think back to a life before social media, there were only a handful of people whose thoughts and ideas you might know in your lifetime. You might have heard the thoughts of a relative, or maybe you knew what the town elders thought, but you didn't have to know what everybody thought. I can say with great certainty that there are many people I am related to and have been friends with whose views on life events I never knew. They are gone now, and I couldn't tell you what most of them thought. 500 people or so is by no means everybody, but it is likely more people than I should know on that kind of deep level. The funny thing is that these 500 people retweet the people they follow, so the ripples are far and wide. And it turns out that there is a large segment of the population that I never realized were experts in virology, economic theories, energy production, and warfare. In magnificent displays of the Dunning-Kruger effect, a large segment of the population feels that they are the experts in complex world matters and can shift from one discipline to the next depending on what's happening that day. The Dunning-Kruger effect is when people with limited knowledge or competence in a given intellectual or social domain greatly overestimate their own knowledge or competence. A person is most confident that they understand something fully when they actually know the least, and then again once they master the subject. But in between knowing nothing and becoming competent is the journey of losing and regaining the confidence that you had no right to have in the beginning of the process. But keep in mind that most people blasting their opinions online will never do the work to reach the other side of the Dunning-Kruger effect. They will stay in the part that makes them feel powerful while never learning anything of substance about the subject matter. They will never reach the humble middle of the graph because that would mean they'd have to do research enough to realize that they weren't born experts in that particular discipline. It's kind of comical to watch. Those who know the least are the most adamant that they know what should be done, where the people who truly know what's up must struggle to figure out all the aspects involved, along with all potential outcomes, including unintended consequences. The more you know, the more factors come into play. Additionally, if you are working at a high level of spiritual awareness, you will feel compelled to look at all the ethical angles. Those at the low levels are the first to just want to blow things and people up. Life is simple when you are committed to not digging in deeper. You would think that hearing what hundreds of people think would automatically bring things into sharper focus, but that is not the case. You first have to sort out all the people who have not done the work that would earn them a seat at the table and a voice in the discussion. You have to sort out the people who would be empowered by the failure of those they oppose. You end up having to question the intelligence and motives of each and every voice. And in the end, there are probably only a handful of people who should even be talking, and you may or may not be following them. Everyone else is just parroting whatever the group they identify with requires of them. As everything expands and seeps into every corner of life, our job gets more difficult. We used to be able to assume that some people were brighter and better informed than everyone else. In the past, we drew that assumption from the fact that they had attended certain prestigious schools. But lately, we have seen that there are some horribly deficient people who lack all morals and logic who have graduated from these esteemed schools. And there are people who are outside of those circles who have valid questions about settled matters. It becomes harder and harder to pick through all the voices to help us find our way through. It used to be that people would rely on the word of their spiritual leaders to know what was right and true and pious. But in Russia, we have a Russian Orthodox bishop who is telling his parishioners that Ukraine is attacking Russia in demands that they hold gay parades and join with countries with different ideas of freedom. That is why Russia is having to fight back. Well, that's an obvious lie. Another Russian priest was arrested for giving a sermon that was anti-war. Churches are no longer places that a person can go for moral guidance and clarity. They also have their agendas. In fact, many of them are places that will try to change your mind should you walk in without hatred in your heart towards your fellow man. It's a wild, unruly world out there. The more information you have access to, the harder you will have to work to find the truth and to find choices that align with your current level of awareness. Maybe the best you can do is to block the voices that you have already figured out are ridiculous and low level, and work more time into your day when you can achieve the silence necessary to hear what is already inside of you. You already know so much more than you think you do, and your guides are always right there to help you. The more you listen to your intuition, the more you will be drawn to voices that drop the next bit of knowledge that you need. Turn off the outside voices and get silent. Reconnect with what you know to be true. It may seem like everyone has to come up with a hot take on every event that happens in our world. That isn't required. You don't need to figure everything out on the fly and share that with everyone you know. It is a time for listening to those who know more. It is a time for absorbing what is happening. And here is your part in this. The voice you listen to the most is the voice you hear the loudest. If you choose to listen to the darkness, the messages won't resonate with your intuition. It will just be the loudest. You still know it is wrong. It's much like your old-time radio dial. You tune yourself to whatever radio frequency you want. The lower frequencies can be tempting, but you still know they are wrong. You know it is of the darkness. You know it is wrong, but that is where you want to be. This puts me in mind of Fox News. It is full of all that delicious judgment and hatred and the talk of you being superior to others. But those who tune in do know at a deep fundamental level that it is wrong. They just choose to tune into that frequency. It's a choice for most people, though some with illness do not even know they have a radio. It matters what radio frequency you tune into because it's like eating junk food. The more junk food you eat, the more you crave junk food. If you listen to low-level, low spiritual awareness sources, you will crave more of the same. Every person has intuition, and every person knows the difference between right and wrong. They also have free will to ignore their intuition and ignore the fact that they know what they are doing is wrong. That's both the beauty and the pain of the human experience. We are born with access to love and truth, and we have to decide over and over again if that is what we will align with. It's not a one-time deal. Every day we have to decide who and how we want to be in this world. Tune into the higher frequency. It may be more challenging, but the rewards are eternal. Thanks for returning for another week of Rebirth Revolution. If you listen to this podcast, I'm going to make some assumptions about you. You are a seeker. You are trying to be the highest level person you can be. You are sensitive to what is going on around you. All of these attributes can make life here on Earth pretty difficult. You likely feel all of this chaos more than some others do. But know that this is a strength and not a weakness. And know that there are many others like you. You can always let me know how you're doing by emailing me at rebirthrev@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Rebirth Revolution can be found on all the podcast apps, the music apps, and full episodes can be found on YouTube and our Facebook page. Please subscribe, download, and share whenever possible. Until next week, mute and block with abandon. Seek out the wise and steady voices. Take the appropriate COVID precautions. And know that you are not in this alone. Remember, you are loved exactly as much as every other person on the planet, not 1 ounce more or 1 ounce less. Stay strong and safe, and set your sights on spring.